Hey my friends, from Ready Cyclists, it's Graham Street, and I thought that some of you might like to see my setup for my Crank the Kank time trial bike for this coming Saturday. I'm going to be up in North Conway, New Hampshire, doing the Crank the Kank. It's a 21.5 mile time trial up Kangamangas Pass, which is really cool because I grew up in New Hampshire as a kid. So I grew up in the White Mountains and the Kangamangas Highway. It's just a gorgeous place to be. Mount Washington's right there. Great place to ride a bike. Anyway, I got a chance to do this event this year, and I just wanted to show you how to convert your road bike into a time trial bike. You know, even though this is an uphill TT, the first 15 miles is really gradual, meaning that it's going to be big ringing pretty much the entire first 15 of the 21.5 until we hit the 8% pitch at the end. So aerodynamics will definitely play a role. Now, right off the bat, obviously, when you have a Cervelo, S1, S2, or an S3 like I have, you automatically have a very time trial driven road bike geometry. So I'm kind of at a bit of an advantage with this, but if you just had a regular road bike, here's some things I would recommend that you could do to get ready for a time trial based on your budget and getting a little bit more aerodynamic. First of all, I got my regular bars on here, okay? And what I did is I bought a pair of Profile Design race legal time trial bars. There's no shifters on here, there's no brakes on here, so really you're using this as an aerodynamic advantage. It's making nominal adjustments to your road bike. So it's still my regular road bike that I'm used to riding, same geometry and everything, but now I have the ability to get narrower. Now I gotta be honest, I've done some testing with this bike, both in the regular bar setup. I can get very low in my drops. I got good flexibility and core strength. So I figured, God, how much advantage can these TT bars or aero bars really be? Well, here's the thing. I want you to pay close attention. One of the things about aerodynamics isn't just how low you can get, which is definitely important. Really, what's the most important is your drag coefficient in the frontal plane here, okay? So if I'm in my drops here and here, you can see how wide I'll be, okay? And with my big muscular shoulders, it makes me really wide. However, when I get into this position, watch. See how much narrower that gets, that little slipstream? So although I won't get as low with these aero bars as I could in my drops, I'll get much narrower. And it's the narrowness of my body that will make it more aerodynamic. And after doing my testing, I'm definitely convinced, yeah, it makes a big difference. The handling with these kinds of bars, these little, race legal aero bars, it's okay. I made a couple adjustments here. The way that it came set up, these were way over the top, like right about there. So I had to either compromise my saddle position way too much, or I just felt very uncomfortable trying to grip these knobby little bars. So what I did is I moved them to the absolute rear position. So when I'm in my elbow tuck, I'm more at 90 degrees to my body, and I can rest my hands lightly on the bars here as opposed to just gripping the heck out of them trying to get a good position. And that's made a big difference. I took my stem and I dropped it about a centimeter because these are stacked pretty high. I wanted to adjust the stack height here from my normal road bike position. So again, I dropped this about 1 centimeter down. Definitely has helped. I could probably get very aggressive and bottom it out, but we're going to be doing, after we finish Crank the Kank, Bill and a couple of customers of mine that live in the area are going to meet me there. We're going to be doing some training rides up Bear Notch Road and Hurricane. Pretty big, nasty climbs. And I need my bike to be ready to go without a lot of alterations. I'll take the aero bars off. We're going to do some training after the TT. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, I didn't want to make too radical of adjustments, even though I could bottom this out. I'm going to keep it as a compromise because really, the other thing is that although the first 15 miles I plan to be in those aero bars a good chunk of the time, the last 4 and 5 miles of the climb will really be much more conducive at 8+% to be either in the hoods or on the tops. Now, obviously, trying to ride the tops with those aero bars is near impossible. You can prop your hands up, palm down like that on there, but it's not very powerful. And it's not very good control. So more than likely I'll reach my hands out to the hoods and climb as normal. And of course I'm an out of the saddle climber as well, so I'll be using the hoods quite a bit for the last 4 miles. And that's why the other reason why I did not want to bottom it out just too far. It would just make it to be too extreme for that change. Now, So let's talk about really about the saddle. You know, if you're taking your regular road bike, the major difference between a road bike and a time trial bike, more than anything, is really the seat tube angle. This is a little bit more slack, where when we're dealing with the time trial bike, it's going to get a little bit more pushed upright, almost parallel, you know, perpendicular to the ground. Not quite, but definitely much steeper than a road bike geometry. So what you can do is typically, especially if you got the aero bars on there, is you can nudge your saddle forward a little bit. I nudged mine forward about, I'd say half a centimeter, maybe 3/4 of a centimeter. I think it was 3/4 of a centimeter. And what that allows me to do is get a much more aggressive aerodynamic position. It noses me way forward on the saddle, which is what I want to be, more in an aero tuck position. It's not the most comfortable thing. The biggest thing you got to do is get your, your taint conditioned to the nose, because it sits right there in that really just not comfortable spot. So you got to kind of callus it up a little bit, kind of like your regular road saddle. I mean, it just takes a little bit of time. So I've done about 5 rides on this now. It's a little bit sore, but definitely it'll be ready to go for Saturday. I can take 22 miles of that nose up. A time trial position has never really developed to be very comfortable. A true aero position is not a comfortable position, but it should be an aggressive position moved forward, as low as you can get, and as narrow as you can get through here. The wheels that I'll be using here, you know, I've got the Williams System 58, which are deeper than this. I'm choosing to go with my 38 models, mostly because in the rear, I just had my power tap built up to the Williams 38. I decided to have them build it with white spokes instead of black. Don't those look cool? Yeah, you can't get those from Williams, but you can get the Williams 38s. They are phenomenal wheels. So although they're not quite as aerodynamic, I'm going to compromise between a very aero bike, a very aero position, relatively still very aero wheels in general. And the other reason why I'm not switching it up, to be honest with you, is my Vittoria tire on the front of the 58 are from last year. And although these 320 TPI Vittorias are phenomenal, they ride like tubulars, but they're clinchers. Seriously, they got such a tubular feel to them. The problem is they wear pretty quickly. So they're not tires that, you can just beat the snot out of them year after year. They're about 1 season total and then they're out. And I got some gashes in the ones on my 58s, and to be honest, I just don't feel like changing the tire. So you know what, to be honest with you, this saves me about maybe 1/5 of a pound anyway with the 38 as opposed to the 58. So not quite as aero, but these are really snappy wheels with still being very aerodynamic. The other thing to mention here with your with a road bike setup, if you can or do have a power meter available, I'm taking about a pound penalty, maybe a little bit more. This bike could definitely be quite a bit lighter without the aero bars or the power tap. One thing to keep in mind in relation to aerodynamics, if it's going to be an aerodynamic driven event, you're always better off edging on the side of aero as opposed to weight. So when you're in a relatively moderate climb or flat time trial, aerodynamic drag and reducing that's going to have much more value for you than a half a pound here or even 2 pounds there. So don't think because you have a heavier road bike that you can't get really fast on that bike with some deeper dish wheels, which have a huge value on your road bike, an aerodynamic position, and a little bit nosed up position here. But the power meter will be of huge value for me on the TT because, like in any TT or any ride in particular, but a TT in general, is dosing your efforts appropriately. So I'll have my Garmin stacked right here between, okay? I know my values. I'm estimating between 290 and 300 watts for my working numbers. For the majority of Crank the Kank, I'll probably start, I project the first 5 miles at about 260 watts, so I'll stay below my projection. And then I'll leave room for about 4 or 5 doses of about 320 to 375 watts within the course. So knowing those numbers in advance is good because it allows me to judge how much energy I've put out, how much I have left in the tank. And since that last 4 or 5 miles kicks up from 4% average to over 8% average for 4 miles, you've got to have some power left in the tank. If you burned it way back in the beginning and said, hey, this is a fast course, let's fly it, and you're dishing out way too much energy, by the time you hit mile 16 and a half, which is where it's at, you're going to just toast yourself. And I bet you a lot of people will tend to do that. I hope not to be one of them. So even having all those numbers and everything, let's be honest, your ego gets all flamed up, and you try to hammer it too hard, and you can toast yourself. But I'm going to work hard using the power meter to not do that. I'll keep you posted on that. Other than that, I'm using compact gearing here in the front like I always do. This is a 50-34. I'm using the rotor Q-rings, as I noted to you earlier. I've also got the rotor crankset. Just a major fan of them. Great for TTs. Obviously, I've got the Aero set. You don't need to do that, but a major value. I've got a 11-26 in the back, so more than ample gearing. Again, I anticipate being in the big ring for the first 3/4 of the event. I can't imagine being in the small ring at a 3% gradient on a TT. It looks like the average speeds are well over 20 miles an hour to do a good time for the first 3/4. So I plan to be in there in the 21, 22 mile per hour zone as an average, and then have some of my tank left there at the end. Other than that, again, you could take any road bike and spend about maybe, geez, this cost me, I don't know, $140 maybe. Other couple quick things here. Does an Aero helmet make sense? I got to be honest. I've never been a fan. I don't like how they look on me. I don't like how they look, period. I think they look stupid. But yeah, I've tested again and again with a regular helmet versus a TT helmet. It makes a big difference. These things are designed to really just slip right through the air. In fact, I've heard rumors, I can't verify this, but I've heard rumors from people that know a lot about this stuff that actually an Aero helmet can have more effect than the aerodynamic wheels themselves. And I guess our big fat heads really get in the way of that wind. So we'll see. I'm definitely going to be wearing it. I can't say it's the most comfortable thing in the world, but I will be wearing that. Another inexpensive thing that you can do is get shoe covers. Again, this is just, to be kind of cool. Am I, a TT specialist and ever? No, but if I'm going to go do a TT and I'm training for it, yeah, if I have these available, I already had these at home for winter time. They're neoprene, they're really thin. I bought them at my local bike shop for probably $40, and it'll cut down some wind drag a little bit on my shoes. Other than that, I don't have a skin suit for my team kit, so I'll just be wearing my regular team kit. But you could go all the way and get a skin suit. I know a lot of you have your own TT bikes. Obviously, you could use a TT bike for a time trail with the most benefit, because those things are really designed to get very slippery very fast through the wind. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll keep you posted on how it goes. I'm excited to be using this bike. I got to be honest, it was a real drag not to be using the new Cervelo R5 that I got for the 2011 season. What an incredible bike, super light, very, very fast in the hills. But since this thing is such a power aero-driven course, I'd be a fool not to use this setup, and hopefully I've done it right. I feel much more comfortable with the adjustments that I've made here through the front. Again, I will keep you posted and wish me luck, and I'll be drinking a beer there afterwards, and maybe I'll do a review for you then too. See you in the club. Cheers.